Hello, basketball fans, and welcome to a WNBA playoff edition of your favorite W show, Around the Rim. I am LaChina Robinson, joined as always by my fantastic co-host, Terrika Foster-Brasby. And it is playoff time, guys. Less than a week left in the regular season for the WNBA. So this episode will be getting you ready in a couple different ways. We will update you on standings, talk about the playoff schedule, the playoff format, which is also interesting. And then we will talk end of the year awards. I know we have covered a few, but there's some major awards we still have left to weigh in on. And then a couple other little hot topics happening in the WNBA. So I will start with the league standings right now. As of today, there are 6 playoff spots that have been claimed. If the playoffs started today, Las Vegas Aces are the 1 seed. The New York Liberty are the 2. Connecticut Sun are the 3. The Dallas Wings have not yet locked in 4, but that's where they are right now. And actually, none of those positions are locked in. That's just where they are as of today. But Dallas had a chance to lock in. They lost. Minnesota is at that 5 spot, surprising to most. A team that struggled to start the season. I think they went 0-6, and then they have just gone crazy in the second half behind the amazing play of Napheesa Collier. The Washington Mystics have locked in a playoff spot. I know Mystics fans are like, whoo! Because where expectations started this season and where they went due to injury, and then y'all hit them with a couple more injuries this week with Atkins being out and Shakira Austin.
And now Christy.
We definitely we'll reflect more on, like some of these moments during the season that have just jolted us. But Christy Tolliver tearing her ACL was one of them. I literally could not do anything for the rest of that night. Next day was feeling super heavy. But yeah, shout out to Christy, sending our thoughts and prayers. And the whole scene was just tough. I know the Mystics lost that game, but I don't think emotionally they could recover.
Yeah.
You could just see how much Christy meant to that team, the way they were just crying. They were devastated after she had worked so hard to come back. So shout out to Christy. We'll get more into all these storylines during the playoffs since the Mystics are in. And then Atlanta's at 7, Chicago's at 8, and LA is at 9. Everyone else has been eliminated, included in Indiana, Seattle, and Phoenix. So the 7th and 8th spots are up for grabs. Right now, Atlanta is there at 17 and 20. They only have 20 losses, where both Chicago and Los Angeles have 22 losses. Now, the thing for the Dream is they could clinch this week, even tonight, as that is when we are recording this podcast, as they're going to play Seattle at home. They have the tiebreaker over Chicago. So the Dream are in control, and they've pretty much been in control of their own destiny through the end of the regular season and haven't been able to capitalize, quite honestly, with just a lot of late game falters. And I've said this, I'm not going to get into it on this podcast right now, but they're showing their youth. They are a very young and inexperienced team in a number of ways, not just on paper, but even in terms of the role that some of these players are expected to play in Atlanta. They're young. So learning curve. So it'll pretty much, I think, come down to Chicago and Los Angeles for that final spot. And T, I don't know about you, but it's looking like Chicago trying to lock that thing in.
Chicago is trying to lock that thing in, but quite honestly, it's really hard to tell at this exact moment. Connecticut played LA last night and took a loss, which helped to move Chicago up into that spot. But Chicago's going to have to play that same Connecticut team on Sunday. So they're going to have to take care of business in order to remain in that spot, where they risk an opportunity of falling back as well. That might be the only team in this playoff standing right now that really doesn't have anything to lose, which is Connecticut. They're 3. They can't move up, they can't move down. They just are where they are right now. So they might have the least pressure out of everyone, but that 8th seed is crazy.
It doesn't seem like LA is moving in the right direction, having lost to Connecticut, They were without Nneka Ogwumike for that game. They did beat Washington, but I'm pretty sure that they lost to Seattle. That's the loss I think that could really come back to hurt them at home, I believe.
Yeah. And they have Seattle. Their next two matchups are against New York and Seattle to finish the season. So given that, and also they're finishing the season out on the road, and we'll talk about travel a little later in the show, but travel is definitely not kind to them at this point in the season. It's a little difficult for me to see that they'll be able to recover to nail that 8 spot.
Yeah, so a lot's still up for grabs, including the number 1 spot where the Aces are. You know, yes, New York has a very, 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 very small chance of dethroning the Aces at number 1 and hosting throughout the playoffs, but it's possible. The Aces have Phoenix their last 2 games. I don't know. Just so everyone knows, this playoffs will officially tip off on September the 13th. And in the first round, in case you guys don't remember the playoff format, first round, all 8 teams play. It's the best of 3. And the series starts on the lower team's home floor. And then the last 2 games are on the higher seed's home floor. So opportunity for the lower seed to kind of get in there. Then all you got to do is win 1. Yeah, we'll see. But it should be interesting, and we will keep you updated on the dates from there in. But for now, the 13th, 15th, 17th, 19th, 20th, and 22nd will all be first round games. Now, that obviously depends on how long the series go. If someone wins the first 2, that series is over. Then those dates could change. But we'll be bringing you all the excitement along the way. That's kind of like our big picture playoffs. But now let's talk a little bit about awards, T.
Yes. So we are into award season, which is one of my most fun part of the season. But I got to tell you, LaChina, I have been fortunate enough to be a media voter for the last 3 years. And this might be the first year where it's midway through the week. Ballots are due on Sunday, and I'm not ready. I am not ready. I usually have a pretty good idea of where I want to go with awards. But this year, I feel like the race in almost every category has been so tight that I am just not at all ready to make any significant moves.
Everyone's stressed.
Everybody
is stressed. It's not even a game out here.
It's not. It's not. This year. It's been so much fun to watch, but it's been stressful as hell trying to figure out how to submit this ballot. So we've previously talked on the show about some awards. We've done Rookie of the Year. We've talked about Sixth Player of the Year, Most Improved. But we have not yet gotten truly into the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Coach of the Year categories. And so I'm going to start there, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to ask you first, when you think of Coach of the Year and you think of there are about 4 new coaches this year, I think all of which have done an extremely wonderful job with given the pieces that they were given and trying to make the best of it. I give all of these coaches kudos. However, who stands out to you as the top two candidates, I'll say, for Coach of the Year?
Yeah, it really has started to separate itself for me in these last couple of weeks, because there's been a number of amazing coaching performances. And you can start at the top with Becky Hammon and, bringing the Aces back to 1, or Sandy Brondello. You may think it's easy to make a lot of talent work, but it's not, especially under the pressure that New York has had to be under. I talked about the job that Cheryl Reeve has done at Minnesota, resurrecting them from the dead pretty much. Yeah. And you can even talk about the efforts at Atlanta or Chicago. There's been some really great coaching across the board, but my 2 candidates stand out pretty easily for me. One is Stephanie White of the Connecticut Sun. When you look at this team, you lose a former MVP in Jonquel Jones. You also lose Brianna Jones, who has been most improved 6th player was a very well-respected player in this league. Normally is leading in points in the paint efficiency. I mean, a double-double waiting to happen every night. You also have some changes at the point guard spot. So Jazz Thomas is gone, Breon January, what's happening there? You're bringing in, Tiffany Hayes, trying to figure out how to make her work. Stephanie White has done an amazing, amazing job of getting this team solidly in that third place spot, beating the Las Vegas Aces, and just creating a culture of like toughness again, right? Like people take for granted how hard it is. Yes, that's what Connecticut does. Alyssa Thomas is a big part of that. DeWanna Bonner is having an exceptional season. You know what I'm saying? Like Alyssa Thomas is seriously an MVP candidate, like more so than any other year. And you have to look at coaching and where that plays a part. So I would say Stephanie White for sure is in my top two. And the other one is LaChina Trammell. And I came into the season saying, I can't wait to see what Stephanie White does with Connecticut. I was already 10 toes down because I know Steph as a coach, as a colleague at ESPN. I was covering the games when she was coaching at Indiana. I knew what she was capable of. LaChina Trammell came as a bit of a surprise. The way that she was able to upgrade Dallas in so many ways so quickly, whether it's Arike Gumbawale having her best year as a playmaker and as a defender. Satu Sabli had a 40-piece the other night. This is just a team that seems to really, really enjoy each other. I feel like LaTrisha has brought in a little bit of a college coaching mentality into how she's approached them, and all of these players were very successful at the college level. Just implementing her style defensively, the freedom that a player like Satu has, or, making Satu and Natasha Howard work. There's just so many pieces to this. I was wondering what they were going to do at point guard. She has slid Crystal Dangerfield nicely, and she's done a solid job. This is a team that could make the WNBA finals. And we weren't saying this about them last year. I just watched them play against New York at home. They were a free throw away and a box out and a foul. Like they were 1 point away from beating New York. And here they are probably going to finish the top four. It is not going to be a treat for any team to finish in the number one spot, because you are going to have to deal with Dallas. And I don't know if you want to do that, T. So
you don't.
Shout out to LaTrisha Trammell and also Steph White. But those are my top two candidates.
Yeah, we're on the same page. For all of the reasons that you just mentioned, I just also add to each of them that I think what really impressed me most when I think about Stephanie White in this category is not only did she start this season with a completely different roster than she was hired to coach, but she still continued to implement her style of basketball, and the team adapted to that. I don't think that they knew in the beginning that Alyssa Thomas was going to be someone who was going to fit so nicely into this read up-tempo transition type offense, but it works. It works for her. And I love that she didn't really have to maneuver her coaching style in order to fit the team, even though the team looked very different. So that's something that stands out to me for Steph. And then again, for LaTrisha Trammell, what I really appreciated most is that this team felt like it was starting with a complete fresh slate. And I wasn't sure where this team was going to start. I have admitted, I was like, I don't know what Dallas is going to look like, because every year I feel like I'm saying this could be the year for Dallas, and then it never ends up being the year. So I didn't want to put too many expectations in the air this year. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen.
But your girl.
But you did. You was on it. You was on it, sis. You was a believer from the beginning. So definitely got to give you credit for that. But she's just really made defense such a profound piece to this talented team. And number two, I think she made some things work that I don't think we were sure what was going to work. There's no secret that, it didn't seem, and again, this is just my personal observation, nothing that she said, but it didn't really seem like Natasha Howard was extremely happy to come to Dallas when it was first announced that she was coming to Dallas. So I'm thinking like, wow, you're already going to start the season with a player who might not want to be there. And completely opposite. Like, she has enjoyed her time there. She has really fit in. She's really brought a championship pedigree to this team, and they've adapted to it. And LaTrisha has done nothing but completely elevate this team. They were a 6 seed last year. They sitting at 4. That is enough for me to basically say, whatever it was that you're doing, it's working.
And I believe that this is the most wins they've had in that organization since 2008, which is they were in Tulsa at that point. And I just want to give a little quick shout out to just all the coaches. You know, like, everyone's not going to win an award. Everyone's not a candidate, but especially organizations like Chicago, LA, Seattle, Phoenix, because these are teams that were dealt with either major injuries, major changes. LA and Phoenix had a coaching change mid-season. I don't even know if it was mid for Phoenix. Noelle Quinn had a completely different youngest roster in the WNBA, and the win number may not be where they want it to be, obviously, but it's the improvement that stands out to me. I didn't know what Chicago was going to look like. They lost 4 starters. You know what I mean? And so even to be in position to make the playoffs. So there's just a lot of coaches. Kurt, what he's dealt with the injury across the board. Nikki Blue. It ain't easy, but those two are the top.
All righty. So moving on to, I feel like this is a category that we haven't really spent much time on anywhere. I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about Defensive Player of the Year, but this is a tight race, a lot tighter than I think people may be giving it credit for. A'ja Wilson right now is the current reigning Defensive Player of the Year. She's in my top 2 for sure. I have her and Alyssa Thomas in my top 2, but I'll pass it over to you, LaChina, to let me know who you have in your top 2 as candidates for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have it down to 2. I would say that that's probably the category where I need to do the most work. But some players off the top of my head are definitely A'ja Wilson. It's definitely Alyssa Thomas. It's definitely Breanna Stewart. It's definitely Brittany Sykes. It's absolutely, Jordan Canada. And so those are just, when you say defensive, Benijah Laney, like, they're all in the pool for me. I haven't narrowed down who my top candidates are, but I do want to make it clear, and I've said this a number of times as far as voting for this award. This is an eye test award. So if you vote for this award and all you do is go on the stats to see who's leading in blocks and who's leading in steals, you're doing it wrong. We do have more advanced analytics like defensive rating, et cetera. But to me, even those things, you have to understand the value of a player that makes you change your offense, that forces a coach to not reverse the ball through the top of the key because so-and-so is going to shoot the gap, or someone who not just, Arike may go off for 20, but it's going to be at a low percentage. Like, the players that are guarding in those situations, forcing contested shots, in help rotation, taking charges. Like, defense is very nuanced. And that is why this is the award that every year it takes me forever to really decide, because defensive contributions don't always show up in the stat sheet. So those are some people who are, Elizabeth Williams is always in the conversation. But those are some people like broad stroke, but that is probably where I need to do the most work.
I think the one person who I have had in this conversation, and I'm not exactly sure if my vote will go there, but they definitely deserve consideration, and that's Ezi Maglador. Like, Ezi has balled defensively, and I feel like she's been overlooked because of the struggles of Seattle, because their record doesn't reflect how hard they play. But Ezi was an all-star this year, deservedly so. From the very beginning of this season, she's had an impact on this team from the defensive side of the ball. ball. When you come inside, you got to be ready because Ezzy is bringing it every single time. She's blocking shots. She's defending the low post. Like she's everywhere down there. And I feel like there are moments where the best of the best has to really bring their A game when they're facing Seattle because of what Ezzy's been able to do. Noelle Quinn has been advocating for her all year long. Again, people may not be paying much attention because of the record that they have, but Ezzy is absolutely deserving of consideration for this award. But yeah, like I agree with your point 100% that it's definitely something more than you're going to find when you're looking at defensive ratings or blocks and all this other stuff. I mean, true, those things may help, but you really got to see how this player is impacting the floor from a defensive standpoint. How are they putting pressure on the ball? What versatility are they bringing? Like, those are the kind of things you have to be able to see. And that ain't always something that there's not always a column for that on the stat sheet. But I do have A'ja Wilson and I do have Alyssa Thomas as my top two candidates right now for that. Brittany Sykes is a very close third for me. Like I feel like Brittany Sykes is in this conversation every single year. But it just feels different this year with her in Washington, given not only was this her first year there, but also because of the injuries that they have sustained this year, I feel like she had to play a little bit of a different role and still managed to be one of the biggest defensive pieces for that team. So she certainly is up there in the conversation for me. I don't know which one is, I don't know yet. I don't know. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I don't
know either. I was saying I will know when I turn in my ballot. I'll let y'all know. That's all I got for now.
That's all I got. All right. And so our last award, the biggest, the most heated, most contested, most talked about award right now in these social media streets is Most Valuable Player. And I feel like when you think about this award, it really boils down to the philosophy of the voter, right? Because you have some who feel that the MVP should be the best player in the league on the best team. You have some that feel your MVP should be the person that scores the most points. You have some who believe that the MVP should be the person who is the most valuable to their team, despite record, despite standing, despite scoring, who's the most valuable to their team and how they contribute to their team's success. So with these different philosophies, it feels like you can vote for different people based on that. And obviously the top three front runners for this award this year have been A'ja Wilson, Breanna Stewart, and Alyssa Thomas. So, LaChina, don't be over there shaking your head. Don't be over there bugging your ass, girl. Who do you have on your ballot currently, in your mind, the ballot of your mind? Because we know you don't have it on your written official ballot just yet. But who's leading the charge for you when it comes to Most Valuable Player this season?
I'll be honest, this is the closest MVP race that I've ever been a part of that I can remember. I feel like at this point, in most cases, and I've turned in ballots pretty much since I started covering the league. And so I don't ever remember a race being this close. And I do have a philosophy. And for me, it helps to know what you believe in moments like this so that you can go to the consistency of that year in and year out. Yep. And it makes these moments easier. I will say that the way that these players are rewriting the record books, it makes me question if I need to make some tweaks to the way I pick my MVP, only because history is being rewritten all the time. I mean, Stewie now has 4 40-point games.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. And so that's a great problem to have, is to have three players in particular that I think have really set themselves apart in a completely total universe from everyone else. But if I had to vote today, my vote is probably going to go to Alyssa Thomas. And I am not at all moved by the lack of media attention Alyssa is receiving. I am not moved by her lack of popularity. I am not moved by her lack of shooting ability. I am moved by the historical performances that she's putting on night in and night out. What Alyssa is doing and all the ways that she's impacting the box score is unheard of in the 27 years of this league. She at one point was leading the league in rebounding at 6'2". She owns the double-double record. She owns the triple-double, just had another one the other night record in a season. First person to do it in the finals, but I won't count that because it was last year. We're talking about this year. The numbers that she has put up across the board are phenomenal. Phenomenal. And as I have said previously, what she is doing starts with history. And that is where I always start my MVP voting. Is there a player that is consistently doing something that not only beats out the performances of every other 143, 139, however many players we have in the league this year, but every player that has played in the league? And I do feel some sense of confidence this season on Countdown, having sat next to Cheryl Swoops, having sat next to Teresa Weatherspoon, and they look at me and they're like, Alyssa Thomas is it, period. And so here are people who have set the standard on defense, who have set the standard in triple double. Cheryl Swoops was the first one to do that. Teaspoon was a 2-time defensive player of the year. And that's another important aspect for me is history. You got to be a defender. You got to be playing the game efficiently. And Alyssa does all those things. Am I moved by her turnovers? No. She handles the ball a lot. And her assist turnover ratio is based on how many possessions she's actually having to do everything. Connecticut does not have a point guard. You want to know the difference between the three teams that are locked in right now? Vegas has a point guard.
Yeah.
Courtney Vandersloot is now on the second best assisting team in WNBA history after her own Chicago Sky team was the first. The common denominator is Courtney Vandersloot. She's a point guard. Connecticut has had players slide into that spot, but nothing close to a Chelsea Gray or a Courtney Vandersloot. Nope. I would also like to present for the MVP voting audience that Alyssa Thomas does not have all the pieces around her that everyone else does. And that is no knock. That is absolutely no knock to what Stewie or A'ja have done this season. But I know for a fact, because I played college basketball, you've played, we've watched, when you are on a team of gold medalists, when you are on a team with multiple first team all WNBA performers, when you are on a team with first ballot future Hall of Famers, where you catch the ball, how you catch the ball, where shots come off, all of those things are a little bit more manageable. They make your job a little bit easier when you're also lined up against people who are the best at what they do. Yep. Even if it's one, even if it's two, I don't care. Former MVPs, all the above. Finals MVPs, all the above. That's not what Alyssa Thomas has around her. Nope. And so I won't. That's where I'm at.
We at the same place, LaChina. We at the same place. And I know folks will say that I'm biased because I cover the team, but no, it's not about covering the team. I enjoy the team as a fan. I enjoy covering the team as a reporter, but just as a professional and as someone who knows the game of women's basketball pretty good, it's Alyssa Thomas for me right now. Add to that I feel like the value of assists have been completely underrated in the MVP category for a long time. It's a reason that there hasn't been many guards who have received the MVP nods in a long time, since maybe Diana Taurasi, I think. But it's been a minute, and that's part of the reason why. Alyssa Thomas doesn't need to score as many points as the other team or other candidates score, because she's touching the ball to assist on everyone else on her team that's scoring. Like, it is ridiculous. And I had the pleasure of talking to her last night post game, and you don't know how hype I really wanted to be, because she finally, after 10 years in this league, she finally took a moment to advocate for herself and say, I'm doing this and I'm making it look easy. And by no means are getting triple doubles easy. And I, in my mind and my heart, wanted to be like, sis, tell the people again. Tell the people again. It's not, you make it look easy. You make it look to the point where triple doubles have become normal, but it is not normal to be on triple double watch by the end of the first quarter. That is not normal. So yeah, for me, if I had to list my hierarchy right now, Alyssa Thomas to me would be first. A'ja Wilson would be second, and Breanna Stewart would be third. And second and third to me is like, oh, even by an inch of a quarter of a piece of a mile at this moment, because Stewie, yes, just dropped her fourth 40 piece of the season last night. She just hit the single season, or is it the WNBA record for oh no, it's a single season for points scored.
Which I also want to just caveat that real quick. People need to stop doing this single season record without putting into that the number of games played. This is
That's
a 40
true.
game season.
It's a 40 game season.
It's a 40 game season. So they had a few
That's
more
true.
games than Diana Taurasi and some of those other
That's true.
fossils had.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's true.
To start really prefacing this. I get it. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, but I'm also about respecting history. So
no, that does not take
away anything from what these women are doing, but yeah,
absolutely. No, that's absolutely fair. But it is still it is still an accomplishment that is worth mentioning. But Alyssa Thomas is currently leading the league in rebounds. She's leading the league in assists, a total assist, not assists per game. She's 8.8 assists per games, and Courtney Vandersloot is like 8.1. So it's like a tenth of a point or something like that. But you mentioned it. She's 6'2". She plays the 5 as well as the 4, as well as the 3, as well as the 2, depending on which rotation is on the court at any moment. She could be playing any position, and it's not too many people that are notching 14 assists in the same game that they have to play the 5 against an A'ja Wilson, or have to play against a Stewie, or have to guard against. Like, she's playing these positions. This is true. So this is how I look at it. Like, her impact is just different.
If she has 0.1 assists behind Courtney Vandersloot.
Ain't that crazy?
If she ends this season leading the league in both rebounding, I didn't know she was back atop rebounding. If she ends up ending this season number 1 in rebounds and number 1 in assists, I dare them not give her the MVP. Well, I dare them. It's crazy.
Give me
a break.
It's crazy.
Me, and she's third in steals.
And it is wild. It really is. And if truth be told, she was like 3 away from a quadruple double, honestly, because she had 7 steals last night. You had 25 points, 14 assists, I want to say 10 or 12 rebounds, and 7 steals. Bye. Next award. Well, bye. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. So with that being said, WNBA end of season awards are going to be unveiled in the coming weeks and throughout the postseason. So Executive of the Year will be announced on Thursday, September 14th. Coach of the Year will be announced on Sunday, September 17th. After that, we'll get into the Sixth Player of the Year on the 18th, which is Monday. Most Improved Players on the 21st. And the MVP will officially be announced on September 26th, which is a Tuesday. Following that, you'll start to get your rookie team and your all WNBA team. So those will be announced as the finals start to get into gear. The Defensive Player of the Year and the Defensive First Round Second teams will be announced on October 5th. The all WNBA First and Second teams on October 13th. And then finally, the Sportsmanship Award on October 24th. So I will be on the lookout for that. However, media votes go in on Sunday at 11. So good luck with that.
Woo. Yeah, that's going to be a lot. That is our show for today. We hope you guys enjoyed at least a little taste of playoffs, the MVP discussion, Coach of the Year, whatever it is. You can always hit us up in the comments on YouTube. You can also hit us at Around the Rim on Twitter. I am at LaChina Robinson. Terrika is at She Knows Sports. Next week, we'll talk a little bit about charter flights.
Happy out here backtracking.
We'll update that around the playoffs. I still haven't gotten back to my diversity conversation around expansion, which is one we need to have. But more important than anything, next week, we will have the playoff brackets set. So Terrika and I will be giving our predictions. And with that, T, anything else you want to share?
No, I think we're good. I'm excited. Thanks all for all your comments on YouTube. I do read them. I do like them. I do comment back. So
I had to stop commenting back because I was looking like a psycho.
Oh my God.
I was like, get out of these comments. Because my name, I guess I didn't claim my name. So my name is like LaChina Robinson 84375. I'm like, they're going to think I'm some kind of weirdo.
Yes, they're going to think you're a bot.
But I'm like, who took my name? Can we look into that? I'm about to hit. Anyway, whoever took my name, I'm coming for it. Okay?
My name.
Period. Whoever took my YouTube handle, I'm coming for you. Anyway, y'all, we'll see you next week.
Bye.